So good afternoon. My name is Kelly Ano, and I am the Vice President at Legacy Foundation. We've worked with many of you. For those of you who we haven't worked with, Legacy Foundation is the community foundation for Lake County, Indiana. We manage donor funds. We give out scholarships to students attending college. We give out grants to nonprofit organizations. We work to build the community in Lake County, and we also work with organizations on capacity building through our Legacy Learning Lab. This session today is part of our Learning Lab series. We've been doing a number of them throughout COVID, bringing together resources and experts around relevant topic that organizations have been experiencing. So today we are talking about how to host a virtual auction. So a few weeks back, we had an event that was about hosting a virtual fundraiser, and I received some feedback afterwards that it was a really helpful and interesting learning lab session to listen in on and to hear what organizations are doing, but that, as a follow-up, people were interested in hearing more about the fundraising piece and how you can engage donors and do virtual auctions. And so I reached out to a couple of the organizations who were early adapters to going virtual with their events and with their auctions to share their experiences in doing so. So I'd like to thank our panelists that we have today, who I will introduce. And then if you take a look at Legacy's website, we do have some more events coming up. So next week we have a learning lab on strategic restructuring. And we are bringing a national expert on nonprofit strategic restructuring to lead that learning lab session. And so they'll be talking about how you can work with organizations to partner to be able to restructure, to consolidate resources, to be able to combine and merge functions so that you can be more efficient in how you operate. So take a look at that. And we also have some others in the works that will be coming out soon. So with that, I would like to introduce our panel and also our other Legacy Foundation team who is on the call. So we have Carolyn Saxton, who is the president at Legacy Foundation, with us today. Erica Pfizer, our director of marketing and communications at Legacy, who will be helping us with the Zoom. Cindy Hall, who is the executive director of resource development at Ivy Tech Community College, will be one of our presenters today. And then we also have Lisa Carpenter, the Chief Development Officer at Humane Indiana. Allison Vaugh, who is the Vice President of Development and Communications at the Foodbank of Northwest Indiana. And Amy McDunn, who is the Events and Outreach Coordinator at the Foodbank of Northwest Indiana. So thank you to our panelists and to everybody who has joined us today. And we'll get started with Cindy, if you would like to talk a little bit about your virtual event and fundraiser that you had at Ivy Tech.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining in. Just to give you a little background, we originally had our in-person event scheduled April 3rd. Well, obviously that wasn't able to happen. And unfortunately, we had an office full of stuff. So we had all kinds of auction items that we had gathered, over 100 to be quite frank. And once we figured out we had to cancel everything, rescheduling wasn't an option. We had to jump into high gear and start researching the online auction platforms. Who we ended up engaging was Event.Gives. Event.Gives charges a 3% fee to use their platform, and then it's another 3.5% for a credit card fee, and then 30 cents for every transaction after that. So when Kelly asked about budgeting, we had to, again, shift gears, take a look at what all those expenses were. We knew what our gross total of the auction items were that we collected. And when you start looking at all the fees of those platforms, you got to sit back and think, you know, you got to get rid of it somehow. So you have to engage those kinds of folks. So we also talked to a live auctioneer. Well, that will includes another expense, which can really start getting out of control if you don't seriously take a look at the contract and figure out, do you really need them? And is it really going to be return on your investment? So at the end of the day, we did make money, not as much as if we were in person, because you always have that people haggling with each other. They're going to outbid each other just for the sake of outbidding their buddy or their colleague. And then they walk home with stuff they don't necessarily want. But nonetheless, we did make money, but I would say, you know, buyer beware of the expenses. If once you start live streaming and you start including a live auctioneer, that price tag goes up from a budgeting standpoint. And you got to sit back and think, is your cause, is your constituency enough? I mean, do you have people that are invested enough to be spending that kind of money? So, so yeah, budgeting, be sure. And it seems to be pretty template with a lot of the ones that we investigated about the 3% and the 3.5% card fees, the transaction fees and stuff like that. It's the cost of a live auctioneer that can really drive up your expenses. My team, which includes Michael Ashcraft and Donna Demko, and I saw they're online here, we did all the work. We did all the photography. We had all our items spreadsheeted, costed out, all those kinds of things. And that decreased your expense of having an outside person do it, because pretty much you can pay anybody to do anything. And that's something we've always done. We just never took the pictures because we never did the online, the cell phone bidding stuff. So that was a huge cost savings for us because we're already on the clock being paid. So that was a good savings. When I'm looking at like engaging the audiences, the one thing that we figured we had to do is utilize all forms of social media, whether it was, you know, we had sent some stuff in mail with some people we knew didn't have email. We sent newsletters, we sent text, we did Facebook, we did everything imaginable regarding trying to advertise it. When it got like 3 weeks beforehand, Event.Gives told us, start pounding out emails every single week, all the time. If you can get in a position when you're in a Zoom meeting or something and you can present, you know, get excited, talk about some of the items that you might have to cause people to, you know, to engage and come in. And then I always, when it comes to our spring event that involved an auction, I always get the crazy side of me and I pull out my pom-poms. And now I have maracas. And so if nothing else at all, if you think I'm a little crazy, you got to do something to get people's attention. In the COVID world, nobody gets mail anymore. No, we've taken to handwriting some stuff to send to people to get them to pay attention, to dial into us. And so any chance we got, we reached out to some of our volunteers to say, hey, make sure you zoom into Ivy Tech's auction. They got really cool stuff. And we reached out to all our staff, all our faculty. We were sending out emails that totaled, I believe, like 2,000 people, in hopes that we could get enough people that zoomed in and, you know, helped us out, because I was tired of having my office look like a department store and it wasn't making us any money. So that was a lot of work because we sunk a lot of our time into that. And then when it comes to an event like that, your goal is to get rid of your stuff. But if you're wanting to turn it into more than that, you've got to raise your money before that even happens. There's things you can do. If you have certain items, you can call people that you know that might be interested in those items and say, geez, will you bid, so that you can call your friend that'll outbid you, so that people can see traffic. When people are online, in an auction, they want to see that there's traffic moving with your stuff. And you know, you got to have good pictures, you got to have good explanations. Minimum bid needs to be to the point where it's not insulting to whoever donated it to you, but it's low enough that you get people to bite on it. And so there's some stuff that we got quite a lot of bids on. There are some things that did not sell that are still in my office. And then we followed that up with a blind auction, meaning we sent an auction out just to our internal constituency and allowed them to bid on it blindly, saying the value is $50, minimum bid's $25, and we got rid of, I think, almost all the rest of our things. So that's how we did something like that. When I look at pros and cons, it's a whole lot of work. COVID environment is really stressful. The biggest mistake I think anybody can make in the fundraising arena is assuming that nobody's got money and everybody's out of work, which is completely not true. There are those of us who never stop working. And as I'm looking at Allison, I know she's been there the duration, and Amy, and you know, several others, a lot of you never quit working. Fundraising has ramped up more now than it ever has. You know, I know Lisa has been working, and if nothing else at all of us have been doing more stewardship than we've done in a long time because we're at home. So it was the stress of, I think, are people going to bid on stuff? Is there going to be enough people to zoom in? And all you care about is making money for your organization. So the other thing we did too is we got one of our students to do a video from their home, and she told us her story, because we always put all proceeds benefit the Meet the Need for Ivy Tech students. And we got one of our students to do a real compelling story. And we had several folks that bought stuff that didn't necessarily want it, but they bought it because they wanted to take part in Ivy Tech to help more students, like Taylor was her name, that did a really nice video. So storytelling is a huge, huge, huge thing. If people don't know your mission, then it's just stuff and it's just another auction. And that's where we let off. We had an interview from our chancellors. And so Chancellor Louis Gonzalez of the Lake County campus, he talked to you straight from his kitchen table. And people really like that. And then we had our student speaker in the middle. And then we had Chancellor Atzo Sikoski from Valparaiso. He tied it up at the end from his living room, and he told them where he was, and they explained about the situation, and they appealed to the sense of folks wanting to help students finish their education. And so stories, and more stories. And the more heart-wrenching there, I've had other donors say, Cindy, give me a story that's gonna make me cry. I wanna give you more money, and I wanna share your story so that I can share it with friends, so that if they don't wanna buy the stuff on your auction, maybe they'll just send you a check. And so we had several people that did that as well. So if you're going to have an auction, make a point to have an opportunity for them to just donate. You don't ever want to do an auction without having that, because some people don't want to do stuff. And if people are willing to click on the link and just, you know, hit their credit card with whatever amount of money, that's a beautiful thing. So I think, Kelly, did I hit everything that you needed me to hit?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions, we have a few minutes if you want to ask any questions now directly for Cindy, or we also have time at the end. So does anybody have any questions, or do we want to move on? Just a second to raise any hands or speak up. All right. Great, then we'll move on to Lisa. And Lisa, if you want to talk about your event at Humane Indiana, and then we also will have time at the end if there's questions for all panelists, or you can submit your question at any time in the chat box.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having me today. It is great to be here. Everyone on the call, nice to virtually see you. My name is Lisa Carpenter, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Chief Development Officer for Humane Indiana. And for us, it's a little bit unique in that we had scheduled a silent auction to be a piece of our fundraising gala, which we do every year. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. And we have been doing that event now for 27 years consecutively. So the gala was scheduled to happen in March, 2 weeks after everything shut down due to COVID. So as I spoke with Kelly about this, it was interesting because there were some wonderful things that I learned about our donors through that process. And I wanted to share that with you because we kind of took that from the live auction that we were going to have into our virtual auction. So first piece is sponsorship for us. We had secured sponsorship for our event prior to COVID. And so we were fortunate in that that was pretty much secured by many corporate partners. And once COVID hit, I had to then call each sponsor and say, okay, we canceled the gala. We're going to have one next year, but right now we had to cancel that. But we're going to move the auction from this live to a virtual online platform and ask if the sponsorship could still be honored by these folks. And so obviously that was something that we never experienced as an organization. And so reaching out to those donors and those sponsors to tell that story, I think they felt the impact just as much as we did. And to Cindy's point, I think when you share the stories, people are connected. If they're passionate about the mission, and your donors are passionate about your mission, for sure, you know, they're there with you and they feel it. And so almost all of our sponsors had said, yes, you know what, even though the gala is canceled and this is going to be a much smaller event online, we still want to honor that sponsorship. And so we were able to keep the vast majority, 90% of our sponsorships for the event, which really helps the mission. So I think my tip on that would be, if you are finding yourself in a similar position where you have moved your event to an online platform and you're not going to get that camaraderie of being face-to-face with your donors, having that personal call ahead of time, I think makes huge impact because they're going through it too. We're all going through COVID. So I think that helps the community and helps people stay engaged for your event. But as far as our auction, when we have our silent auction, typically for us, our auction has 100 auction items. So those auction items can be individual items, they could be baskets, or they could be events. We do all three. And so having the 100 items already, for the most part, we already had them in-house and ready to go. We were like Cindy in that we said, okay, now how do we package this together in a way that will be meaningful for an online event? And what does that look like? How do we roll that out? So for us, I would say one tip that we learned is you need to know your audience. And I can't stress that enough because for our organization, our audience for event fundraising has changed over the years, as I think most of us have experienced. I would say before 2016, our event audience was that donor that we all have that is passionate about the mission, blue collar folks. They are either budgeting or sacrificing or planning in order to purchase a ticket or be a part of your event. And if those are your folks, my recommendation is this. For your silent auction, you need to have those price points that make sense for your donor. So the $50 silent auction item to the $150 silent auction item is what we have found has worked, and that's what I would recommend if that is your donor base. So it could be a basket that has multiple pieces to it, or it could be one solid item, but that's the range. And I think Cindy touched on this, and I wanted to touch on it too, because I think it's so important to remember. Those donors that donated that item to you, that means a lot for them. That was their donation. Perhaps they paid for that themselves, or they were giving you something that they had. That means a lot, and you need to honor that as well. So when you're making a price point on that gift, be mindful of that. One thing that I did on some of the items is I personally called that donor again. And it's an investment of time for your team, but I think it's powerful to say, hey, we are now moving to this online platform. We don't know what engagement is going to look like. How do you feel if we start the price point of your donation at this lower range to start, just to get people engaged, and then it should go up from there. And that's what we did. We found some success with that. If your donor is the donor that is a high net worth individual, a donor that has a lot of disposable income, and that's the donor that you're going to be working with for your auction, then my recommendation is going to be, when you're planning your auction baskets, you need to have that range from $50 to $500 or more, because you may have folks that are, hey, I am looking for that something special right now. I am looking for that splurge, or I am looking for something that is unique and I wouldn't just find at the store. They will spend the money. If they know it's going to your mission that they're passionate about, do it. It will work. Another tip I would say is be mindful that some folks will come together. If you have donors who are friends or donors who work for the same company, they may go in together on an item and purchase that higher end silent auction item. So don't be afraid to put some baskets out there that seem like, maybe feel like a little bit of a splurge for you or for what you're used to. Put it out there and see what happens. You can always come down on those price points throughout your auction. And that's something I want to talk about a little bit later on, but don't be afraid of doing that if that's your audience. If your audience is a mix of the two, then you should have that $50 price point up through that $500 price point, and don't be afraid to have a range. That's okay too. So for us, a couple of things that had happened due to COVID and due to going online is that we had these fantastic experiences planned for some of our auctions. And for us, those are the high-end auctions. So I'm talking about concert tickets, Bears tickets, sporting events, Blackhawks tickets. We had Cubs tickets, Sox tickets. All of that went away. And so that was damaging for us because, to Cindy's point, you're trying to create that revenue. And those are the high revenue sellers, right? I mean, those are the high ticket price items that we had no more. So when we were originally having our auction, we thought we had 100 items. When we went to the virtual online auction, we had 60. So we saw a natural reduction there just because we lost those experiences. And then some of those stores or some of those retail shops that had committed to give an auction item had closed. So then we weren't able to fulfill some of those auction items just due to COVID. So you have to be flexible, and you have to know we're all in this together, and it's still going to work out. Be flexible with your price points, I would say, for your auctions. For our organization, we used GiveSmart. So when we talk about budgeting for a platform, GiveSmart is a platform that we have now used 4 years in a row. And I would encourage you to take a look at them. If this is the first time you're doing an auction, they have, I would say, pros and cons to their platform. It is an investment for your organization. So if you are doing an auction and you believe an auction is a piece that you're going to continue, or an auction is something that you have done in the past and it's going to continue in the future, GiveSmart would be a good choice. I would recommend them because they have a lot of back-end information that they gather for you and provide for you that you can then use in the future for future events. So for example, with GiveSmart, we've used them the last 3 auctions that we've had the last 3 years. And so we reached out to them and said, listen, now we need to go live and do this virtual thing. And we've never done that before. Can you help us? They have support and they have training. So what they did was they said, yes, we'll do kind of like learning labs with my team. And they did 30-minute learning labs where it was kind of like a Zoom call. We were online and they showed us these are better ways to take photographs. These are better ways to entice donors, and gave those how-to tips for doing something live. And we needed that because we've never done that before. For our organization, it was always a piece of this live event. So to go virtual was new. So that was very helpful. You do have to take the photographs of all of your items. If they're going to be, people are shopping on their phone or on the website, they need to be able to see what your auctions are and what those items look like. And a lot of times when you get into this, you find that the items don't photograph well. So a tip that I would say is before you put your item together and in the beautiful cellophane, in the beautiful bow and packaging, leave it all open, no cellophane, take photographs with the individual items laid out. And that way people can actually see what's involved in that basket. Because if you're up close and personal to your basket, it's beautiful and you can turn it around, you could see what's in the back, you could see every piece of it. But when you're doing this virtually, you have to remember you have this stagnant photograph, and sometimes that doesn't resonate well with your donor, and you're going to need to change out photographs. You're going to create more work for yourself through this process. So my tip is going to be, don't do that to yourself. Take the pictures without it looking all pretty, just so they can really see what it is, and then you can put it together. You can also have multiple pictures with GiveSmart, and that was helpful too, just for that reason. So you could see something up close and personal, but also you could see it, all together. So that's something we used. Another pro with GiveSmart is that, to Cindy's point, she said, you have to do the e-blast and you have to communicate with folks 3-4 weeks out. With GiveSmart, we did that, but we were also able to pull all of the cell phone numbers that they've stored from the last 4 years of using them for all the other participants and all the donors from previous years. So that really helped us, because now we were able to connect with those donors who maybe you don't talk to them all the time. Maybe they only connect for this. This is their thing, right? This event is their one thing. And you kind of lose them along the way, or they live in Florida, they're not local. Using GiveSmart helped us send text messages and text alerts that, hey, now we're going to this virtual platform, please connect with us. So that helped us capture those donors that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to capture. You do have to sign a contract with GiveSmart. You do a 50% deposit, and their fees are based on how many items, how many donors. So it's very customizable. I felt like the live in-person auction with them was definitely worth it. But going down to this virtual auction like Cindy, you see definitely a reduction in what you bring in. So it was expensive, but I think it was needed due to COVID. We had to absorb that cost. It's also, I want to say, a 3% fee per transaction, per credit card transaction with them. They offer a buy now option and a donate now option, which I think Cindy touched on this a little bit. So you can have a button to your donors that's just a donate now, and they can type in any level they want to give. So if I'm your donor and maybe I'm not connecting with any of your items, I could still donate 25 bucks. And we found that to be very helpful. So don't be afraid to use that. We used it and we loved it. The buy now option with GiveSmart is something that they kind of encouraged us to use. Buy now was one of those things where if we had an item and nobody did that first bid, it was kind of stagnant. And then I called the donor and said, hey, we're going to take the price down. How do you feel? They said, okay. We brought it down, still didn't get any bites. We did a buy now. So buy now means this is, we're not negotiating. This is the final price on this item. Buy now for 50 bucks and it's yours. The first person to click buy now gets it, they win. And that's how we got rid of we had 3 items that were left that still had no bid on it, and we sold those that way, so that worked for us. In terms of time for your staff, this is something new for most of us, so you're going to need that investment in time to train, to photograph, and to plan. I think the marketing side cannot be overlooked. I think it's so important. And for us, that marketing was e-blasts, text messaging. If you do have cell phone numbers, GiveSmart helped us with that piece of it. And on the website, you really need to promote and manage your event. So I think the marketing piece is important investment of time for your marketing person or for your development team if you all work on it together. In terms of our timeline for our auction, what we did was recommended by GiveSmart. 4 weeks out, we started our countdown of teasing. So we teased out e-blasts, and with each week, we teased out 1 featured item. So this was something that we thought was a special item or an item that really resonated with the mission, and we featured that item and told kind of a bio about it with the picture. We did that every week for 4 weeks. On the 4th week, we went live for the auction, and for 7 days, we were really promoting that auction day in, day out. And one thing I would encourage is talk with your team, your board of directors, and your staff about, are there any items that you think might resonate with one of them to ask them to start the bid or to be watching the bid and really encourage them to bump it up? Because that fun factor needs to be there, right? People need to be engaged and see, oh, I'm challenged by someone else. I want to win this. So they're more encouraged to get involved and increase the bid. That helped. Don't be afraid of doing that. The last thing that I would say is with your auction in terms of time and budget, you need to remember that when when the auction closes, you still need to get these items to your folks. So you need to dedicate some staff time if they need to deliver these items, if people can't get to you. You need to make it easy for the donor to be able to pick up the items, maybe some special office hours that will work safely, wearing your mask, staying socially distanced. And then you need to make sure that you're sending out that follow-up in terms of the thank yous to these folks, because they have really stepped up to and gone above and beyond for those items. So I would encourage that to happen too in terms of your marketing and personal thank you notes. Everybody loves that personal note. I think that goes a long way. I don't care what age you are. It means a lot to get that in the mail. So I encourage that all the time. And yeah, at the end of the day, our auction brought in 50% of what it brought in person. So, given the state of COVID, we were satisfied with that. And my hope is that we can get back to in person, but I think you need to be realistic about what it is and flexible about what you need to do right now, given the state of the world. And so that's what we saw. So those were our numbers, and we're working on our next virtual event. So more to come for sure.
Thank you, Lisa. That was very helpful and very informative. And now I will turn it over to Allison and Amy, and then we'll also, as I mentioned, have time at the end if there's any questions for any of our panelists.
Hi, everyone. I am going to share my screen. Okay, I think Erica has to share it says the host has to share my screen.
One moment, I can get that.
Okay.
I set you up as a co-host, Allison, so you should be able to share.
Got it. Let me try it again. Hold on.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. There we go. All righty. Okay, there we go. Hi, everyone. We wanted to share our really wonderful insight about transitioning to a virtual event. So we typically host an event entitled the Soiree, which is a live event. We had transitioned the event anyway from a venue space that we had been using for years and decided to host the annual event in our facility. So we had done a lot of prep work, invested in pipe and draping, all kinds of things, because we were going to do this transformational, amazing event where we actually increased our hope to raise an additional at least $20,000 from previous years. So when COVID-19 emerged, we took a very long time deciding not to have the event. But because in order to preserve the safety of everyone and also to hopefully capture some of the revenue from the live event, we transitioned to what we call the soiree virtually. We decided to take the most appealing elements of the live event and transition to the soiree virtually, and then figure out how to do all of those things. We knew that we were going to host an online auction. The auction had always been one of our top revenue generators during the annual event. We did a wine barrel raffle, which we hope to transition, and then also mystery bags were a big part of our event. So these three things we wanted to kind of recreate for a virtual environment. But also we were trying to determine what other things, like how could we maximize this opportunity to transition to a virtual event. So we also decided to feature our agencies. We have 111 plus partner agencies, and decided that we were going to feature them throughout the live stream portion of the event. Amy's going to talk a little bit more about this. We wanted to engage our sponsors in a creative and unique way. And so the decision to our original event was June 9th or 7th. We forgot the original event date. And we decided to host a virtual event and have a kickoff to start the auction, and then a closing finale to close out the auction. And so I'm gonna switch it over to Amy, and she's gonna talk a little bit about how we transition the event.
Yep, all right. Yep, so as Allison said, our event.
Amy, we can't hear you.
Hello?
There you are.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, so can we turn down the monitor? Sorry. Okay, so with retaining sponsors, as Lisa said, that's a big part for just since there's such, sorry, I don't know. Okay, sorry, we're just having a little bit of an echo. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe.
Figure out how to.
All right.
So Amy's going to actually just come to my computer. All right.
This is the technical world we're living in now. Bear with us.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so as Lisa said about Humane Indiana, retaining sponsors is really important, and how we communicated that to how we were transitioning it was very important. What we did was basically share with the sponsors what we were doing, what we were how we were going to recognize them, and the great ways that we were doing, for the good things that we were doing to make the event virtual. So basically, in the communication that we sent to them, we basically were wording it in a way where we were sharing the great things that we were doing and saying, let me know what you think, instead of, are you still planning on staying on? We basically wanted it to be so they had to opt out instead of take an action to opt in. The action piece of opting in and opting out, it's just one extra step. So just in the way that we were kind of communicating it, we wanted it to kind of be like, we're doing all these great things, you're going to receive all this great recognition, why wouldn't you want to stay on, instead of making it the way we're communicating it, not making it so that they would perhaps want to step out, since we did have a lot of sponsors secured. And that worked really well. All our sponsors stayed on, and we actually got one new sponsor during that transition, which was really good. Okay, so for our event, I'm gonna go to live stream. There we go. Okay, so as Allison said, we had a kickoff live stream on July 19th, and then a closing live stream at the end of our event on July 29th. So the medium that we decided to do this with was a live stream that was a Zoom meeting that we live streamed via Facebook. So this was really great. We, since we didn't really have like too much experience with live streaming and stuff like that, we actually reached out to a connection that we have. They're called the Bill and Callie Show. They host just a show that showcases people and organizations that do good work in Northwest Indiana and the Chicagoland area. They basically host a morning show every day, and they deal with like Zooming and live streams every day, even when COVID wasn't a thing and when virtual events weren't a thing. They have a lot of experience in that. So that was really exciting. We reached out to them and asked if they would be the hosts of this Roy Virtually live streams, so that they'd be a big help with that. We had live content and also pre-recorded content. So all of us at the food bank, all of our content was live, us talking about the mission, why it's important to donate, and things like that. And then our pre-recorded content was live entertainment that Bill and Callie helped get us that connection, which was exciting. As well as Allison said, we reached out to our agencies. We got just a little bit of their perspective on hunger and what they've seen, how they've seen the huge impact grow during COVID. We edited just an emotional video telling their story about why it's important to donate and kind of how hunger is a really big issue in Northwest Indiana. So that was a very compelling video that was pre-recorded and edited that we were able to splice into the live stream. And then also a big important pre-recorded content piece was the inclusion of our sponsors. So we reached out to our sponsors in that communication and asked if they wanted to basically submit a 60-second video of them talking about the organization, a little bit some things that they wanted to promote, and then also why they support hunger relief in Northwest Indiana. So this was kind of like a commercial for them, free promotion for them, and also a way to engage them and ability for them just to have a lot of fun. And that was a lot of fun to do. Some of the sponsors did a little skit, made it like a whole production, which was really fun. And those sponsor videos we showed during the live stream, and we also showed on Facebook as well. Okay, all right. And the next is promotion. So basically our event, we had a website for this Roy Virtually just on a tab on our main food bank website. So this website had links to the live stream videos, also our auction site, and also the site where we took tickets for wine barrel raffles, mystery bags, and then souvenir event koozies. So we'll talk a little bit about the sites that we used for the auction and the other ticketing websites in the next slide. But for the other kind of ways that we promoted the event was just in an emails blast to our newsletter. We had the sponsor commercials that I said earlier, we shared those on Facebook. We also had 3 times ads, which is really exciting. We had one before the auction and then 2 during the auction. On social media, we had auction item highlights that went over some of the really great auction items that we had. We did that about like once a day leading up to the event and during the event. We also, thanks to our connection with the Bill and Callie show, they actually got us on WGN TV News, the morning news, Channel 9. And they actually got like, I don't know, there's like a 2-minute time frame of them just talking about the food bank, the increased need that we've been seeing, and then what the soiree virtually would look like since they were hosting it. So that was really exciting. That was something we've never gotten exposure with before. So that was really cool that they got to do that. And then the next was text messaging. We also did text messaging to inform people that the live stream was happening. And also about once a day, we had reminders about the different auction items that we had with links to that, and the wine barrel raffle and the mystery bags. So those were the ways that we promoted the event. Okay.
Oh, we're switching. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. And then, so our fundraising platforms, this was probably one of our most challenging aspects of the auction and everything. We had 2.5 fundraising platforms we were using. We had typically run the soiree through Eventbrite because it was a free platform and allowed us to not have any costs associated with it. Not a lot of functionality, but it's what we had. We also used 32 auctions. That was a recent something we used just for this because we needed something free. We did not want to blow our budget. We keep our costs for everything like way about between like 7 and 10%. And we wanted to do the same thing with this. We also were in the midst of transitioning our events to QGive, which is this amazing fundraising platform that we are now fully using for a few upcoming events, but are also going to fully use for our auctions. So that was one of our challenges. The advantages, we wanted to share a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of each. For budgeting, the software, engagement, audience, we're going to kind of bring it all together. For Eventbrite, the Eventbrite fees were like a blessing and a curse. It was free to us, but it charged our customers a fee for things. No flexibility with Eventbrite. Captures information well, but no bidding capabilities or anything like that through Eventbrite. For 32 auctions, it was free, very easy to use. If you capture the fees online, it's free. If you don't, it's offline. If you capture the fees offline for your auctions, there is no fee, but if you capture them online, there was a fee. Easy design, not a lot of design variety. There was like a high volume of ads. I mean, you could click anywhere on the site and the ads were just everywhere. You can only do 1 pick per item, so we had to do really great picks. And it was free up to 20 items. We actually paid, I think, $30 one time in order to post more items. We were planning on 100, but because of COVID, we lost a lot of our auction items. And then email, there's a lot of email correspondence during the bidding, which is good. You know immediately if you're outbid or if you want, if you're the top bidder, just all kinds of things. For QGive, which QGive is a multi-dynamic event auction platform. QGive is included, we have what's called the everything package, which includes peer-to-peer fundraising, auction, text messaging. And so far, we've been into QGive since July, and the return is just tremendous. It is absolutely amazing. So user-friendly, captures, let me stick to my outline. Massive design capability for QGive. It captures information extremely well. It integrates with all of our platforms, our website, Salesforce, everything that we're using, social media. The sharing capabilities are unbelievable. Social media integration is, so I'm not trying to sell you on QGIve, but it is tremendous. Text messaging capabilities, extremely user-friendly. One of the biggest benefits of the QGIve platform is that sharing capability. So you can make a donation, bid on an auction item, and then in one click, you can share it by email, social media, or text message. And for us, that's huge. It also saves customers' profiles and allows email correspondence during bidding. We're going to have to put on our masks because we're going to do this last part together.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So the successes and challenges. Amy?
Yeah, so we were able to sell 96% of all our auction items, which is really good. That was a big success. We retained all our sponsors. As I said, we got one new during the transition. With the virtual event, anyone could bid on an item regardless of where they were. So that was good. We could engage new audiences. The live entertainment that we got to play during the live streams, they were so great. They were wonderful. The sponsor engagement was really good since they couldn't be there in person. We really wanted them to have some fun and creativity with how we would recognize them. The mission was promoted in a very interesting way. With the live stream, we were able to have the conversation and why the staff of the food bank was passionate about hunger relief. And so people who watched the live stream really got like an inside look of the food bank that we probably wouldn't have been able to pull off if it was an in-person event. So that was really interesting. We hit our event virtual goal minus basically selling tickets to attend the event. It was free to watch the live stream and stuff like that. We didn't charge a fee for that. But regardless of that, we fit what was on par from last year. And then maintained integrity.
That was mine. Maintain the integrity of the event. When people come to participate in an auction or an annual event, they have a certain expectation. And so our event has been happening for several years. And so with a virtual event, we maintain the integrity of the previous events. We didn't make excuses because it was virtual. We still created the same type of atmosphere virtually, and even the fundraising expectations for the event. And challenges. Of course, the number one challenge, the whole reason that we're together is COVID-19. I mean, that was such a big challenge, just trying to figure out how, why, when should we. Auction items, like I think Lisa mentioned, we had this grand plan, auction items lined up, and we only got what we got. We probably missed out on 35. We wanted 100, and we had almost that much kind of set up, but it didn't work out that way. Facebook regulations. So our live stream to kick off the auction actually stopped because I guess we had music that wasn't that was
very weird. It was like Facebook thought it was copywritten when it actually wasn't. So they blocked our video when we were like 20 minutes in. So that was just what we started over, and the second time it went fine. But Wi-Fi. So the first time our Wi-Fi was a tad little spotty. The second time we got an Ethernet cable and we hooked up to the internet to avoid that from happening. The live stream content, it was kind of difficult to see how we wanted our kickoff live stream to be different from our closing live stream. So that took a lot of planning. It was kind of a lot of work.
And then the auction items, we had, someone mentioned this earlier, I think it was Cindy, and Lisa, we wanted people to see how amazing our items were, and it was just difficult to do that through the live stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was, even though we had just like so much great pre-recorded content and live content, it's still hard to engage people virtually. I feel like in person, you just can't really beat being in person. And then also, since we live streamed on Facebook, not everyone has Facebook, so that was a challenge as well. And then another challenge was that since we were transitioning to QGive, we were using 32 Auctions as the auction site, and then we were using Eventbrite to sell wine barrel raffle tickets and the koozies and the mystery bags. So I think some people probably got a little bit lost in that, even though we had a main website that had the links to all those sites. I think if we had everything on one site, it would have been a lot less confusing.
Yeah, and so that's it. We had a tremendous experience. We're thrilled that we did not hit our live event goal, but we hit the same goal as the event last year, considering it was a virtual event, and learned so much. So that's it, everyone.
Thank you so much. That was really informative and very helpful, I'm sure. So with that, do we have any questions from anybody listening in? You can either type it in the chat box or take yourself off mute and just feel free to ask your question for any of the panelists or all of them.
I think one thing Amy said that my IT guys brought up to me as we plan our next virtual event, make sure your host is hardlined into a router. Don't try to do it virtually. As I see these guys shaking their heads, at some point, you're going to have to go to your office and have your host computer be the hardwired one. Otherwise, you're going to have frozen faces and burps in the system. And so as we plan our next event, that's one of the things we made note of, is to make sure that we're at least in the office in a hardwired situation. So thank you guys for bringing that up, because I think that's huge for our friends to understand the glitches that some of us may have lived through and survived, for sure.
Absolutely. Any other questions? All right, well then that brings us to time. So to be respectful of everybody's time, we will wrap up now. Thank you again to the panelists. I think it's most helpful when we're able to learn from each other sometimes. And so I've gotten questions from people on what kind of platforms are best. And we at Legacy have not used those, and it's not something that we've experienced. And so we're not getting any commission on these platforms that Erica's put in the chat, but I think it just helps to learn what has everybody else used, what has their experience been with it, and I'm sure that it's okay if anybody needs to find out more about your event. If anybody reaches out to our panelists, I'm sure they would be more than happy to talk in more detail as well. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Great job. Great job.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That was the deal.